And welcome. So we're talking about Barbara Walters here with her memoir, The Audition. And it details her early Today Show struggles, grounding the presentation in her breaking and entering of journalism through economic and demographic shifts in a post-war American economy. Barbara Walters began her career at WNBT-TV in 1953 when she was very young. And she joined the Today Show as a writer and a Today girl, a woman who, brought coffee, and they wrote about fashion and women's issues. And her rise in the 1960s then shows how she tackled journalism's male-dominated world fueled by media growth. So in our post-war economic boom and media growth, we're looking at all these ways that women are shown here. This could be a whole nother show on how they interacted with the TV set. And according to Romer, the U.S.'s post-war resource abundance, including advanced broadcasting tech that we got from World War II, and then the onset of these very large urban areas that consumed media, these cities, Walters had all the tools she needed to excel as a journalist and a producer. And America's economic boom, for example, it shot up from 12% in 1950 to 87% in 1960. So just within a decade, it jumped. Walters rode this media wave, but her Today Girl role, it faced gender limits in a male-driven society. So as we look at our demographic shifts and our female audience, according to Borrowe, with the GDP's gross domestic product, with a focus on market transaction, it drove post-war consumption policies, and that increased Walters' appeal. Again, you've got the baby boomers and women in work, and even targeted them to the growing female demographic through the Today Show segments and then her produced show, The View. Now, Romer's idea of scale effects then shows how large U.S. markets boosted her media innovations like The View. But on the other hand, the GDP's exclusion of non-market activities like household services prioritized urban market economies, making the rural demographic declines irrelevant to Walters' urban media career that was centered in New York. And so while she could reach these rural demographics, it didn't matter that those were declining to her. So I wanted to rephrase that for you in another way. All right. So for gender barriers, she certainly overcame them. As you see, she's pictured here with Castro and Richard Nixon on the Watergate scandal. She moved beyond those Today Girl limits I was telling you about and landed interviews with figures like Fidel Castro. Her $1976 million ABC deal broke the gender norms, broke that glass ceiling, so to say, and showed her rising for women in this professional power grab. Walters' journalism indirectly engaged with geographic influences on economic and entrepreneurial situations through her global reporting. Her interviews with world leaders like Anwar Sadat or Menachem Begin often touched on economic policies that were tied to these geographic realities, such as the Middle Eastern oil trade or routes or post-war financial systems. Now, her coverage of these international figures reflected how geography influenced business, aligning with Schweikhart's point about growing historiographic importance. Now, we come on to the bibliography and the sources I used. So I mentioned Bowery and Schmelzer, John Katz in another biography of Barbara Walters, Mark Mitchell and Schluter, and then Romer on Why Indeed in America, and then Larry Schweikart, Dr. Larry Schweikart in the video lecture, and then, of course, Barbara Walters' biography. Thank you for listening.